What is going on, everybody? It's Tuesday, March 11th. This is the walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Welcome to it. It is March. It is the best time of the year. Three big things for tonight. The show is largely women's basketball heavy, but also got some men's basketball at the end. Got Alex Jones joining me to talk men's SEC basketball tournament. But big things for tonight. No coin flip needed. What did South Carolina do to be crowned the Queens SEC for the third straight year in a row? SEC superlatives. Who shined the most for South Carolina when the lights were the brightest? And men's basketball goes dancing. And now I mentioned Alex Jones will join me at the tail end of the show for a brief update on the men's side of things moving into the SEC tournament over there. So getting things off and rolling, here's the intro, and we will get started with no coin flip needed on the other side of things. Welcome in.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Yes, indeed, it is that time of the week. It is the best time of the week. It is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. Coming at you live from Columbia, South Carolina. No coin flip needed for South Carolina women's basketball as they take their third straight SEC conference title. Dawn Staley moves to 34-8 all time at the SEC tournament. Pretty convincing stuff from a team that, battle back. I think expectations for this team were through the roof at the beginning of the season. They were, especially after going undefeated in a national championship. But again, after all things said and done, in the regular season, you battled back from a loss to UConn. You got, embarrassed at home. You finish out the rest of your schedule by, cleaning up the rest of the SEC. You get into the SEC tournament, and South Carolina takes care of business. Chloe Kitts, tournament MVP. She was my vote. She was great out of the blocks. 25 against Vanderbilt. In South Carolina, again, handled business against Vandy. That game got down to where the lead was just 5, I believe. But Chloe Kitts, again, tournament MVP. I think it was a pretty unanimous one as well. Was able to do things essentially what you wanted on the offensive end, which is key. It's really key for Dawn Staley and her squad. Again, as they really haven't had, somebody who has been able to just take over the reins when the game, kind of gets close and says, all right, like I'm going to shoulder the load offensively. So it was good to see Kitts be able to do that. Again, Dawn's had, players, this whole roster is made up of players who can score the basketball and do really dynamic things offensively and including taking over games. But so far this year, it's been Kitts. It's been the one to step up and do it the most. And obviously Joyce Edwards has been great throughout the year. And you love to see a freshman developing as quickly as she has. She had her 21-point game against Oklahoma, which was big. Again, South Carolina beating Oklahoma 93-75 in the semis to get their title game with Texas again. The rematch, but starting with Vanderbilt, again in EXO, check it in. Congratulations, Chloe, absolutely, again winning the MVP. But yeah, defeating Vanderbilt 84-63. Again, Chloe went nuclear. She had a 25-point game. It was her third straight double-double, and she just took over. Plain and simple. She had double-double in points and rebounds. Again, was a big catalyst to the big runs that South Carolina had late in the first quarter that ran into the second quarter. And then again, in the fourth quarter, Kitts, I think she had 7 in the final frame to get things done for the Gamecocks and put that game on ice. So that was big against Vanderbilt. It was, again, offensively, some runs. there was still a little, to be tuned up. I mean, they didn't shoot the basketball really well in the third quarter, but again, they rallied back in the fourth and to really put things on ice. And yes, so the defense was great. Defense was fantastic. Again, against Vanderbilt, they let some things slip up. They weren't as tight in the pick and roll, but again, against Oklahoma, we saw that response in terms of the defense, especially Oklahoma, and it got even better against Texas. The defense was lights out again, holding Texas one of the best scoring offenses in the conference to just 44 points and pretty poor shooting as well. So the defense certainly won you this SEC title. Again, I wrote about that for the Spur. Go check that out if you haven't already. But I highlighted, just everything that this team's been able to do defensively, and also a nod to Raven Johnson as well. Been able to, quarterback this team defensively. She's been lights out, and Dawn Staley gave her flowers post game after Texas again for everything she's been able to quarterback on the defensive end. Raven is one of those players who might not draw headlines with everything she's doing on the offensive end, and people will kind of wonder, it's like, is she going to go to the draft? Like, what is Raven Johnson doing to make herself a player for the WNBA? Well, I mean, Raven does the little things right, and she led the team in plus minus. I believe it was against Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. With 18, she was great, and just really set the tone for the rest of the tournament. So again, shout out to Raven Johnson for getting quarterbacking it all. And I'll get into my SEC superlatives as I mentioned I would, but Raven Johnson is not my defensive player of the tournament. My Elijah Fulwiley is to spoil a little bit of the show and what's to come. But Fulwiley was also nails. So defensively led the way for this team. They were just so great, really so great. Just with on the defensive end, and it fueled into their offense, right? It really did fuel their offense. So again, that Oklahoma game too, Miriam Dauda, right? Miriam Dauda was key. She was an unlikely hero. Really, really, really good stuff off the bench for Miriam. She played 12 minutes and tallied 5 points. 3 of them came at the free throw line, was able to, get a couple fouls on Reagan Beers down the stretch there, which was key for this team, right? It took Beers out of the game. And again, continued momentum for this South Carolina team. And when you have a player that steps up when she has not been playing as well recently, it's key, right? And so we saw that from Dauda stepping up when the lights are brightest and when her team needed her the most. And I think this South Carolina team rallied behind that. They played behind her. They were all really, 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 really proud of her post game, and and to Dawn kind of said as well, and Dauda is going to be a key piece on next year's team. And credit to Miriam Dauda too. I mean, she's one of the most positive humans I've ever met. Just kind of covering this team, and in sports, really, I mean, she's just always, looking at things positively, like what she can do for her team to set everybody else up. So it's not necessarily focused on Miriam Dauda per se. She's really team focused, and we saw that way this team reacted around her. Big day. She finished with 5 steals, or I believe it was 3 steals, 2 blocks. Three steals, 2 blocks in 12 minutes of action for Dauda. So great stuff for Dauda against Oklahoma, and really, was kind of the unsung hero against OU. Again, it was big against the Sooners to have Joyce Edwards score 21. I mean, it's big, never can do that. And Joyce, I mean, we've seen fantastic stuff from her all season long, right? So again, when you have your big freshman stepping up when the lights are brightest, at the SEC tournament, it's key. It really is key. And it shows that, she may not have had the best game against Vanderbilt, but she responded with a big day the next day. So it was very, very big for the squad, for Joyce as well moving forwards, because it shows you that, she's comfortable on the big stage. She's comfortable when the lights are the brightest. So, hat there and hat tip to Miriam Dauda for getting things going. When a lot of people in this fan base, especially on the message boards, see all of that outing Miriam Dauda. And again, I think next year Dawn had said that kind of post game, that, we'll see a lot more of her next season, and her development, and as her development kind of continues here rolling forwards. But, hat tip, certainly, a player that's going to make an impact for South Carolina one way or another. Stepped up with her length on breaking beers. Again, was too much to handle. A force of turn, got involved offensively as well. Tessa Johnson, again, lights out in the Oklahoma game, 11 points. She was great offensively. I don't let that get lost in the shuffle here with this conference tournament. But Tessa was great. Really, really stepped up again. To the way that she had played as a freshman, she was, really, really, really good in the clutch. And so, Tessa, again, keeping that up. Again, another player who didn't have the best day against Vanderbilt, but bounced back against Oklahoma. 11 points for Tessa. Big, big, big game for her. And then you go to the SEC title game, right? You've got Oklahoma. It's huge, huge, huge game. SEC title game. You've got Texas. Beat Oklahoma. You've gotten to your rematch against Texas, and you stomp them, right? The whole coin flip. It's a team you split the season series with. They won one, you won one. This team wanted revenge, and I had to a couple in the media. It's like, okay, how do we think this is going to go? And I had mentioned, it's like, if this team gets past Vanderbilt and this team gets past Oklahoma, they're going to want that, extra layer. They're going to want that extra incentive to play Texas in the title game to get the revenge, to get their get back, right? So it's like, it's one of those things. The team is hungry. I didn't see them play without edge all weekend long. I did not see them play without edge all weekend long. So it's just, again, so determined, the effort out of everybody on this squad. Again, Miriam Dowda stepping up, and unlikely hero. Sanaya Fagan was also great. I'm not going to give her necessarily a ton of love here in next segments, but did also need to shout her out as well. She was great for South Carolina. But again, moving forwards, defense won Texas, right? Defense won against Texas. And you hold one of the best scoring offenses in the country to 44 points. Madison Booker, again, Madison Booker was on my ballot for the SEC tournament team. I'll pull that up here in this next segment. We're gonna hit a quick commercial break right after I finish talking about Texas, and then we'll get into SEC superlatives before talking to Alex Jones. But again, did want to talk about I've got Madison Booker in my SEC all tournament team, right? And yet it was Chloe Kitts and this defensive effort from Sanaya Fagan shutting things down for Madison Booker again, and just all Texas as a whole, right? Texas as a whole, they were shut down Sunday afternoon. There was no chance of them, mounting any sort of momentum in this game. And again, credit to all the Gamecock fans who got out there to Greenville. It's an hour and 45-minute drive, depending on where you're at in the state, possibly shorter. But again, this squad, they really have just performed well when the lights are brightest. I think, with the lone exception to UConn. And had they not lost that UConn game, they would be a lock for the number one overall seed right now. Currently set to be the number two overall seed and have UConn in Birmingham potentially. So could you get back there? I've also mentioned to people that this team is really well when there is get back on the horizon. I'm going to say this again. This team plays really, really well when there is get back on the horizon, right? So I think it's clutch, and we saw that against all weekend against Oklahoma when they were one step away from beating or from getting Texas in the championship game, from getting their get back, right? They were hungry against Oklahoma. There was zero doubt on who was going to win the game. They played with so much enthusiasm, so much edge. It was all there for the team moving forward. So big stuff. And again, I think they're going to want to get back against UConn coming up. So we saw that against Texas. Raven Johnson again, captain the defensive effort. Dawn said Bree Hall, Raven captained it. Chloe Kitts, again, no doubt on her SEC tournament, MVP case, 15 points, slight. Tessa Johnson was also great. She tallied, I want to get this right, make sure we get this right, 14 against Texas in the championship game. Big shot Tessa coming in clutch. Tessa, again, I'll kind of circle back to Tessa here a little bit against Oklahoma. She hit the team's first three in the third quarter, and, the crowd was really into it at that point. I believe she forced the timeout. But again, really good stuff from Tessa. She was great again in the championship game, 14 points, hitting big shots per usual. And when she got involved, the crowd certainly got involved as well. So big to see that, from Tessa again, who struggled previously, right? She had struggled in the past games. So again, big for her, and more on each of those players' kind of performances coming up with these SEC superlatives. I'm gonna hit a quick timeout, real quick commercial break. Again, appreciate all of our sponsors here on the walkthrough. But get a quick shout out from them, and we'll be right back for the second half of the show. Appreciate you guys tuning in.
Low on energy? Struggling with inflammation and poor digestion? Try Encapsulate 6 Mushroom Blend and get back in the game. Our blend is specially formulated to promote overall wellness and maximize health benefits using 6 powerful functional mushrooms. Our science-forward approach offers the most potent and bioavailable mushroom supplement on the market, backed by third-party testing to ensure safety and efficacy. Order online on Amazon or encapsulateusa.com today to start your journey to better living. Enter promo code JCM for $10 off.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire.
RoseMidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth. And, we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Yeah, massive shout out to our sponsors, Encapsulate, Resto Pros, with the Right to Bear Arms. And so, yeah, again, appreciate our sponsors on the walkthrough this week. Again, getting into our second of the show, my SEC superlatives. Who stepped up the most for South Carolina women's basketball in Greenville? Running through it, I did want to hit on my ballot really quickly. So here's my ballot for all tournament team. As you can see, I had 3 South Carolina Gamecocks, with my lead full, Chloe Kitts, Joyce Edwards, all players really tearing it up all tournament long. Joyce again, leading the tournament not necessarily leading the tournament in anything, but again, having a 21-point outing against OU for her to get scoring on the big stage, as I mentioned. So there's my ballot again. I had to give the hat tip to Anissa Morrow, again, was essentially carrying LSU through this tournament. And Madison Booker, again, was lights out for Texas in just about every game besides the South Carolina one. So, and clearly a focus for the Gamecocks moving forwards. So that is my SEC all-tournament team as quick. So moving into it again, good second half of the show. Here we go. SEC superlatives, right? Talking about this, moving on from the SEC in my bracket for the all tournament team. Who stood out? Who's going to come home with the MVP? Who's going to win offensive MVP, defensive MVP, and then my own song hero. So coming at you with 4 different options, excuse me, here tonight. But so my MVP was Chloe Kitts. Easy vote. 50 points through 3 games for South Carolina. Anchored this offense. Her 25 against Vandy, again, her 3rd straight double-double. Her double streak was ended against Oklahoma, but she kept scoring. Finished the tournament, was an anchor, again, offensively. This team with a 15-point outing as South Carolina closed out Texas. A clear and obvious vote for MVP. Chloe Kitts. Hats off to you, madam, and for such a big weekend for South Carolina. Women's basketball, getting things done, leading this offense, and really leading things offensively, getting her teammates going. My offensive MVP is none other than Tessa Johnson. Tessa Johnson stepped up, lights her wrist, Said it about 1 billion times on the show already. She's been great. Game Tessa was back. Tell her, let the people know it's getting out there again. She stepped up again. She hadn't had the biggest of years. She wasn't necessarily the number one, maybe number two option on the offense very many times this year. Couldn't necessarily find consistency in her shot. The big game test is back. Tell a friend. And big stuff for South Carolina in this offense moving forward. Huge. She tallied 11 against Oklahoma and 14 against Texas in the SEC championship game. Huge stuff. And she was second on the team in scoring twice. Talking about that Oklahoma game and Texas. As the stakes ramp up, expect Tessa Johnson to get going. Again, her big threes against OU kept life in the offense again and helped put the thing on ice, quite literally. Cruise to victory. So, yeah, that is my offensive MVP. My defensive MVP is Mylasia Full-Wiley. She was also fantastic. 8 steals in 3 games. She had a massive 3 following one of her steals that lit. I mean, it was probably the loudest and granted, this was my first tournament, but the loudest pop I heard all weekend was when Mylasia Full-Wiley had it. She stole the ball at the end of the first quarter of this Vanderbilt game, last play of the first quarter of this Vanderbilt game, right? She steals the ball, looks up at the time, realizes she doesn't have much time, pulls a 3. Huge stuff. Huge from Full-Wiley. Her plus minus led South Carolina. She was plus 44, meaning score changed 44 points in South Carolina's favor when she was on the floor. Really, really good stuff. She's talked about how she's gotten her defense going. So huge stuff from Full-Wiley as my defensive MVP. Last one here before we get to Alex Jones coming up. My unsung hero, Miriam Dowda. A pretty easy pick, I think. My unsung hero being the player that has, stepped up the most, when the most unexpected player to step up the most, right? I think was Dowda. She was the reason Reagan Beer stayed out of rhythm. I mean, there was offensive possession where Beers was at the top of the post, and Dowda stepped up to guard. Beers tried to go over the top. Dowda was too much. For Beers. She was the spark of life that this team needed in the first half. Again, and that's when this team really kind of gets going again. And you also have to discount the second half and how everything goes, and how the other team jumps out responding in that second half. They didn't play as well in the third quarter against Vandy, but hungry dog eats. So they're going to get things done in the second half. They really want to, or straight out of the second half, they really want to win. Miriam Dowda, again, hat tip to you, Adam, because, again, she's the reason Reagan Beers stayed out of rhythm. 3 steals, 2 blocks for Dowda in 12 minutes, which, again, play from her, the unsung hero. Nobody really saw it coming. Again, especially people on the message boards. I know she wasn't great during the regular season, but, again, I had always kind of said, she's going to find a role. She's going to step up, somewhere along the lines, and Miriam Dowda stepping up against Oklahoma. Big stuff. So moves Dawn Staley to 94-27 in games played at neutral sites, including a 59-17 mark in postseason play. Dominant from Staley, again, as they roll in. We'll have Brad Muller on next week's walkthrough, again, to talk more women's basketball, previewing the NCAA tournament, for this women's team. But, again, I want to turn it over to the men's side a little bit as I'm joined by one of the big Spurs men's basketball writers, Alex Jones. Alex, how are we doing this evening?
Doing great. It's good to be back with you. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. Always good to have you on. Talking some men's basketball here. You've been covering this team throughout the year. Hasn't been great, but again, they Arkansas in this SEC tournament, a team that they've had a lot of success with, especially with John Calipari. So we hope for an SEC tournament with this men's team playing Arkansas up there in Nashville tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. It's one of those where I think South Carolina just kind of goes into it and plays with nothing to lose. I mean, I think they kind of just go in there and play as free as they can. And Lamont Paris kind of talked about this after the Tennessee game on the radio with Derek Scott about how there can be a little bit of confidence they can take from having playing Arkansas and playing the way they did against those guys. I mean, they really for the most part that game dominated that game. So I mean, that can give them some confidence in that game. And then you see, if you find a way to take down Arkansas, that's not going to be easy because Arkansas is, they're playing their best basketball. I think kind of towards the end of the year. Again, those wins against Vanderbilt and Nashville, and then against Mississippi State, those are 2 key wins. And I think they're sitting there pretty safely on the bubble right now. I think Lenardi has them in the last 4 buys group, and so we'll see. But I think it's an opportunity for South Carolina to just go there and see what they can do and see how they can, find a way to get a few wins if they can.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you're keeping your postseason hopes alive. Whether or not you're going to be a bubble again, as many games as you can win in the SEC tournament, the better your chances improve. Alex, what do you need to see out of this team to have them convince you that they're a postseason team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just starting with Arkansas. I mean, you look back to that first game against these 2 teams. Like, I mean, Colin Murray-Bowles was unstoppable, 35 points, and I think you have to imagine tomorrow Arkansas is going to really key on him and not let him get those 30, have another 30-plus point game. And so I think a big key for South Carolina is having obviously those other players step up. And Nick Pringle had a really good game against Tennessee this past week. I think he had a double-double, but really played one of his better games of the year. And against Arkansas, he had 18 points and 9 rebounds. So I think he's going to be a key player in tomorrow's game because I just think Arkansas is going to do everything they can to not let Colin Murray-Bowles really kind of single-handedly beat him. But when you look back at that Arkansas game, the first one, they didn't really get much from the guards other than Morris Ugasuk had 6, I think, and Jordan Butler had 9, and Morris Ugasuk had 6, and really other than that, Jamari Thomas and Zach Davis and Jacoby Wright combined for 4 points. So there's going to need a little bit more from the guards in this game, I think, but I'm really kind of keying in on the battle in the paint in this one because I think South Carolina can get some things done with what they've shown against Arkansas before, but I think defensively continue to do what you did really that first round. Now I think you have to imagine that Arkansas is not going to shoot 3 of 24 from the field in the first half and have that bad of a shooting game really where they shot over or just under 28% and 13% from 3. So it's going to be a battle. Arkansas is going to have revenge on their minds in this one, but it should be a pretty fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the time of year where momentum plays emphasis in postseason basketball. This team has had a lot of close games against really, really good teams. I mean, they had Tennessee's number. They were leading Tennessee winding up winning that game. Can you take momentum from that and how do you translate it into, the next game moving forward?
Yeah, I think there are some positives you can take away from that Tennessee game. When you look back before that Tennessee game, South Carolina had not played well on the road recently, and that from middle conference play kind of towards the end. I mean, just kind of away from Colonial Life Arena, they hadn't had much success at all. I mean, LSU ran away from Florida. They had that game kind of close at halftime, and then Florida ran away with it. And then Missouri obviously had that game where they just kind of went off as well. But I think in Tennessee, you played one of your better road performances. Just Tennessee was a little bit too much there in that second half. But I think there are some key things you can take away from that. I mentioned Nick Pringle. Nick Pringle had a really good game against Tennessee. And that's really a game where Colin Murray-Bowles was – I mean, he was a factor, but not as much of a factor as he had been in those previous games, and you still were in it. I mean, so I think it's just going to come down to really, I think, can South Carolina do enough tomorrow in the paint to get some things working, and then really they're going to need some perimeter shooting to show up as well because Arkansas, they're probably going to come out firing, and you watch to see what they can do.
Yeah, most definitely, Alex. You and Matt Anderson will be live following the game, or at least a little bit later on tomorrow night. Yeah. Make sure you guys check out those guys going live again on the Chiefs Network YouTube channel. Alex, tell the people where you're at. Plug the socials and all that as I give all my guests, at the end of the show a chance to. But let the people know what you're up to.
Yeah, just continue to stay tuned to the Big Spur. We got it all covered there. You can find me on Twitter at AlexJones_45, and we'll continue to keep things up. Obviously basketball season, got the SEC tournament coming up. We'll see what they can do, but then it's always recruiting season. So then transfer portal season is going to hop up, and then before we know it, Joe, spring football is going to be here. We're almost a week away from it, so it never stops. But we'll have it all covered.
Yeah, Alex Jones, again, one of the hardest working men at the Big Spur. Again, appreciate you joining me, Alex. And, again, be sure to check out the show again tomorrow night. But, Alex, be well, my friend.
See you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as always. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Again, covered a lot of good stuff on this week's episode of the Walkthrough. Again, I'm your host, Joe Macheca. If you missed any of our show tonight, make sure to go back and check it out. You can find it at the Chief Sports Network YouTube channel, also on Twitter at thebigspur.com or at the Walkthrough TBS. All episodes can be found there as well. So be sure to check that out if you missed me. And me out again next week. We'll have an interview with Brad Muller previewing the NCAA tournament. South Carolina women's basketball finds out their fate coming up. So on Selection Sunday, I'll have full coverage from that and plenty more written content on thebigspur.com for 24/7 sports. So be sure to check all of that out as well. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Again, really, really, really good episode. And again, have a great rest of your week.